Bando. This is Brooks Bando, and it looks like we're in the day before the Gathering Storm, or more accurately, the beginning of the Old World. So tomorrow, the Old World goes on pre-order, 10 o'clock GMT. So if you are looking to get your hands on that, you may want to get up a little bit early on your Saturday and get in line. Now, so this is going to be, I believe, the first major test of the new Games Workshop website. The first time it has probably some serious traffic. It may not. This may turn out that nobody's interested in the Old World and it doesn't really sell very well. Don't get too panicky, because GW has said that these big box sets for the Bretonnians and the Tomb Kings, permanent items, they're not going to be disappearing, they're not limited, apparently. But if you want one, go ahead and order it. But, remember, you can always order them from places like Element Games, and you'll get 15 to 25% off there. So, if you want to buy it and you're in the UK or in Europe, have a look at getting it from somewhere like Element or Dark Sphere, Wayland Games, The Outpost, because all of those guys will get it to you cheaper than GW will, and they'll probably get it to you shipped to you faster as well. Now, there is obviously an ulterior motive there. If you pick it up from Element Games and you use my code, which is in the description, JAM737, you'll get double reward points, and then you get enough reward points, you can use those to get free models, which would be really good, because if you're going to pick those armies up, by the time you decide to expand your army, you may have a good amount of points, and you should be able to get. I think that box set will give you. I think it's 1 point for every 10. I think you get about 15 quid's worth of points, so you should get somewhere like 30 quid's worth of points if you pick up, say, the Bretonnian or the Tomb Kings box, which is not an insignificant chunk of change. You might, you'll knock 60% off the price of, say, like a box of the new Foot Knights, which is pretty impressive. So have a look at making sure you pick it up from there. We've got a couple of articles to go through as well, and this one it just goes through what the studio did and all the designers, and how did you guys come up with this? And there's a couple of bits in here that I just wanted to touch on. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. If you guys want to check it out, it's over on Warcom, but this is going to be a bit of a quick one. So basically, they do say that they want this to be kind of the Horus Heresy, but for fantasy, which is okay. But it also kind of sounds a bit lazy, because they're very much going almost identically to the Siege of Terror. Sorry, not Siege of Horus Heresy, because you've got the Siege of Prague at the end of this, which is kind of the first major battle of the invasion of Chaos, and the return of Chaos as a major player in the Old World. And I don't know, that just kind of strikes me as fantasy Siege of Terror, which is fine, have an end goal, that's fine. So the bits in here that they talked about how they brought the molds up to spec, and how they've been digging out old molds and old masters, and they've been rejigging the models, because there's a lot of models that were made in metal, and you can't just straight up take a metal mold and turn it into, say, resin. So they've gone through retooling, they're recasting them in Forge World resin. I know, for example, that the Bretonnian Trebuchet is moving over to Forge World resin, but according to a lot of the posts they've made, there's going to be a lot of models that are metal still, which I would assume is going to be a limited thing, and eventually they're either going to get replaced or they're going to just get retooled into being resin models. Now, if you've never worked with resin, or maybe your only experience with resin is like fine cast resin, don't be too afraid of Forge World resin. The scariest thing about Forge World resin is the price. It'll be more expensive, but it's going to be more expensive anyway. Welcome to playing the Horus Heresy. This is how we live our lives. The detail will be sharper than you're used to, probably, from fine cast resin. You're going to want to make sure you've got some super glue, and you're going to want to get your hands on some good, nice, soft files, like some emery boards, and a dust mask. That's about the difference. A super glue. You want super glue. So yeah, so they do say here as well, none of the models we were releasing were found on a pallet. Okay, good. You know, someone was going to say it, that when the price comes out, because they haven't announced the release of any of the old models really, like the Bretonnian Knights, Bretonnian Peasantry. Those guys aren't on that leaked price list, so they probably will not be available straight off the bat. They're going to be a couple of months' time. They'll get released as individual kits. And the price jump from what they were to what they will be quite significant. Just because of inflation, because of the time. You know, if you look at the price of models like when these Tomb Kings came out, and you look at a tactical squad at the time, and you look at the tactical squad's price now, it will be the same sort of jump. It's just these guys haven't had the intermediate jumps with everything else like we've experienced. So it's going to kind of suck more. He talks about how they had guys from different generations, so when they were going through the old models in their kind of archives, they were getting excited over different things. That's kind of cool. That's kind of neat. I like that. You know, we all join the hobby at different times. You know, some guy who started in, say, 8th edition 40k is not going to get nostalgic for someone like me who came in at the end of 2nd edition and got to enjoy that last flare of GW's red period, where, you know, it was really bright colours and goblin green bases and yellow bolters and red bolters and that sort of thing. You know, they're going to be more, oh, I get really nostalgic for seeing the old Death Guard that came out in 8th edition, and I'm like, what do you mean old Death Guard? And then I feel really old myself and I get sad and I just want to relive my childhood. But they also mention here that they found things like there's one Bretonnian model here that was designed decades ago but was never released, and they're going to be re-releasing it. That's really cool. I like that, because you're going to get to see stuff that's sculpted by hand, but it's going to be cast in modern materials. That's going to be really cool. It's going to stand out a little bit because it's going to have a slight different style to what you're used to, because it's going to be a hand sculpted model. Some collectible metal models and oddities from the history of Warhammer Fantasy Battle will be available on a made-to-order basis. That's kind of cool. There's a lot of really cool models from old GW that I really want, but I just can't get my hands on. For example, there's a lot of old High Elf models. Eltharion, the Warden of Tor... I never know how to say it. Yvis? Vesser? I don't know. It's High Elf. Eltharion. He's a lovely model that I wanted to have as a kid, but I could never get my hands on. Same with the old High Elf Lord on Pegasus. Another model I really want to get my hands on. So if they can sell those things, brilliant. Old armies were quite flat, they say, with a lot of troops at the same height. Yeah, that's fine. Monsters were kept small to maintain the low fantasy aesthetic. It was more, yeah, like they say, constraints and techniques and materials at the time. So expect new models, really big, impressive models. That's cool. Okay. Yes, they even say, like, we're far away from the time where something like an old elven dragon was a huge physical challenge. It was. The old elven dragon, for those of you who don't know, was a big sort of S-shaped body with its arms out at its side, this great big head, giant wings, but it was all metal, and it would fall apart if a gnat farted near it. Even being done in resin would be phenomenal for a model like that. So yeah, that would be really, really cool. I'd really like to see that. So I'm looking forward to redesign of models. So something like a big High Elf dragon. I'm going to be all over High Elves. I love High Elves. Something like this guy, but for the High Elves, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going to do a video on dealing with metal models. For those of you who've never dealt with metal models before, it is very different from plastic. You do need a set of skills, a different set of skills, right, and some different materials to work with, like, you know, super glue versus plastic glue. If you've worked with resin, a lot of it's going to be very similar. There's just a few minor differences. For those of you who are rapidly approaching your first prostate exam, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, so you can probably skip that video. People's expectations have changed quite a lot in the time we're doing this. We also have to balance out with the aesthetic and visual identity. Yeah, Age of Sigmar models, while I don't like Age of Sigmar as a setting, and I don't like some of the aesthetic choices of it, the models, technologically wise, sculpting wise, are phenomenal. old fantasy models are really old. They will not stand up next to them. Some of the newer ones, like the Tomb Guard here, are relatively new. There are still models being sold nowadays that were released around the same time as this, so they'll fit in quite nicely. However, these guys are probably another 10 years older than these. So these guys, the horses here on the chariot, for example, some of these models are going to stand out really badly. For example, I mean, you'll see when you look at them, these skeletons, the spear, the hand that is holding them is almost as big as the head of some of the models you see nowadays. That's how different the sculpting was, because a lot of it still was hand sculpted. Some of the newer models, you know, Necrosphinx and that sort of thing, they'll stand up, they'll be a lot better. But some of the older stuff, just have to brace your expectations, sort of thing. So as models are being designed now, we're looking at silhouettes. We can think about how models will fit into units. That's good, yeah. You want to make sure your models look instantly recognisable as that faction. So, yeah, I think it's going to be really good. Now, here's a bit I don't like. What about the legacy factions? I like the legacy factions, so let's have a look at them. Lizardmen, Dark Elves, Skaven, Ogre Kingdoms, Vampire Counts, Demons of Chaos, and Chaos Dwarfs. First things first, Chaos Dwarfs being on that list is fantastic, because Chaos Dwarfs haven't had an official GW army since, like, 3rd or 4th edition Fantasy, where they had these absolutely giant hats that looked ridiculous. I'm not even joking, that the hats were twice the size of the guy wearing it. There was this whole bull like Mesopotamian, like early Iraq Byzantine sort of feel to them. Big curly beards, lots of horns, bulls on everything. Really cool models. The rumour has it that the designer who designed them was basically just constantly told to go back and make the hats bigger, and no one was actually looking at the designs he was providing, and that's why the hats got ridiculous. But I love all of these armies. Lizardmen are in the best place they've been in decades for models, but they are a legacy army. Dark Elves. Dark Elves are some of the cheapest models on Games Workshop's website at the moment. Hey, you want 5 Cold One Knights? They're £20. Buy Cold One Knights. Skaven. Skaven are thematically one of the funniest, most popular and brilliant factions in Warhammer. Skaven are as iconic as Space Marines in my opinion. Skaven are the most Gen Z, Zoomer humour, absolute ridiculous, like brain rot, TikTok funny kind of faction you've ever seen. Because they are just mad. But they're a legacy faction. Ogre Kingdoms. The Ogres have most of the same models they had when they were in Fantasy still. They've got a couple of new models. They got some lovely new Gorgers that I really want to get my hands on. Legacy faction. Vampire Counts. Thanks to thanks to all of the really fantastic models in the Soulblight Graveyard Grave Lords, the Soulblight Grave Lords range. They are in a fantastic position. They've got some new skeletons. They've got cool dire wolves. Or, you know, brilliant. Legacy faction. Demons of Chaos for you edgelords. Yeah, okay, they're Demons of Chaos, but they're still a legacy faction. Chaos Dwarfs. As I've said, they had some fantastic Forge World models. Some beautiful Forge World models. If you've never seen the Chaos Dwarf models that Forge World did, please look them up, because they are some of the most... fuck it, I'm just going to do it myself. Chaos Dwarf. I can't even spell chaos. I mean, look at this thing. How cool is that? This guy is massive. And just amazing, even with his little stubby fingers. Brilliant guys armed with like flintlock or fire glaives. And then they had a giant cannon. They had 2 giant cannons actually. Don't think that's the official GW one, but it was very similar to that. So why are they being thrown? I mean, I get that chaos isn't in the setting particularly, but basically, they've said, oh yeah, no, they're not in... No, it's not this article, is it? it doesn't matter. They've said that they're not in the setting, right? Chaos isn't particularly in the setting. But then you've got access to Chaos as a generic faction, Chaos Warriors. So why have we got those and none of the other guys? It's all just a bit dumb. I like a lot of these, and there's a single line here or thing. If you want to come on this long-term journey with us, the factions in the Farces of Fantasy and Ravening Hordes books are the ones to collect and play, and we want to be pretty clear about that. Do not squat this many armies, because frankly it would be incredibly dumb of you to do that. Okay? Change this line to read something along the lines of, these factions do not represent any major players in this conflict. However, at a later date we will be focusing on them because we'll be looking at a different conflict. That's all you need to say. They'll come along later. Because Dark Elves are cool. You have High Elves, so why haven't you got Dark Elves? The Skaven are everywhere. The Ogres are in any of the mountain ranges. The Vampire Counts are everywhere. Sure, the only one I can really tell, like there's two here that I would say are justified to not have. Lizardmen, because frankly not many people were messing around with the Lustrian continent at that point, okay? And Demons of Chaos, because Chaos is weak point. So I don't know why I'm getting so worked up over this. I like these factions. I'd love to collect these factions. You give me a box set that's like 120 Storm Vermin, I would buy it. Okay, you give me a bunch of new Ogres, I'll buy them. I love those models. You give me Dark Elves, they're cool. Malice Darkblade is a fantastic character. So, it looks like it's all just going to be Tomb Kings and Bretonnians to start with. And, okay, fine. The ironic thing is that neither of these factions were particularly popular when Fantasy came out. And the fact that they've become popular thanks to Total War, and they became popular, oh, I don't know if they became popular, but they've sold for a lot of money due to the scarcity of the kits. You could buy a Bretonnian Start Collecting box set, which originally had been £50, and it was going for £200, £300, sometimes even £400 on eBay. That's not an indicator that it's popular, it's an indicator that it's rare. Yeah? So yeah. Collect what you want to collect. Play how you want to play. I'm liking these two Bretonnian sigils. I'm thinking of doing some sort of seafaring style Bretonnian army. I'm thinking of using like the Idenith Deep King Lord on that weird like sea horse thing as a Pegasus. So yeah, I will probably be getting into this at some point. If you guys are looking at getting into this, you can do it too. We'll be talking about it on this channel. This isn't just the Heresy now. Don't worry if you are just into the Heresy. I'm still going to be covering the Heresy as my primary focus. Like, Horus Heresy is always going to be my jam. But I also quite like this, and the more like High Elf stuff that comes out, I'll be covering that. I'm going to be covering stuff from, how to make terrain for this at some point. I want to be doing that for 40k and 30k too as well. So guys, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for sticking through this video. If you have, just drop a comment down below. Say, tell me if you're going to be picking this up. Tell me what army and what ideas you have for your armies if you're going to be playing this. And yeah, hit like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTuber gumph. And just remember, you can get these models, a lot of these models, far cheaper than buying them from Games Workshop. Go check out Element Games. Please continue to keep using my reward code there. It gets you guys something. It's not actually like I've got any sort of affiliation with Element Games. This isn't like a referral code. This is, I don't think if I had a referral code, I don't think you guys get anything for that. It's just a link. This way you guys get some sort of reward too. So please, if you're going to be buying from there, please use that code, because it just helps you guys out as well. Anyway, As always, you can join us on Discord if you want to. The link is in the community notes. If it's expired, just drop a comment in there and I'll post a fresh one. We have some good chats in there. We got some great guys in there. And I'll see you there. Alright, have a great day. Bye-bye.